Welcome back to Not a Straight Line with me, Pete Daly-Dickson. This is the show that explores the non-linear journeys of artists and entrepreneurs to inspire you as you zigzag through your own non-straight line life. Not a straight line by name, not a straight line by nature. And in this episode of the Not a Straight Line podcast, we're shaking things up with a fresh format. You're about to meet Alastair Mackenzie, a world-class salesman, sales trainer, self-professed sales automation nerd, and, wait for it, healer. But there's a twist to our usual approach. Because I've come to realize that this podcast is really a gift to my guests, a platform for them to share not just what they do, but how and why they do it, and what makes them truly extraordinary. So this week, while we'll still explore Alastair's fascinating non-straight line journey, you'll experience it through a slightly different lens. We discuss a new service that will help my guests amplify their expertise, share their wisdom with the world, and discover the 3 vital connections that lead to success. I could try to explain more, but some things are better experienced than described. So jump into the episode with me now and see and hear for yourself. This might actually end up being a slightly different episode than usual, but you quite the opposite from you being shortchanged. You will get more out of this as a result than my average guest, just because the process and my thinking and stuff has just got to a point of really figuring out what the value to my guest is of being on this show with me. And it's not just being on this show. So did I talk to you when we met about the affirmation that I've been asking myself about? Do you know what an affirmation is?
An affirmation opposed to an affirmation?
Yes, that's right.
No, I don't know the difference.
So an affirmation was, the idea was thought up by a guy called, author called Noah St. John. And an affirmation is like an affirmation, but it's phrased in the form of a question so that it gets into your subconscious at a deeper level. Okay. So with my financial situation, which I shared with you on a call, I started to ask myself the affirmation: how is it that I'm able to attract so much wealth to me in all of its forms, simply by way of doing what I do really fucking well, and that is by having really great conversations with people? How is that possible? Well, the great thing about an affirmation question like that is you don't have to think of the answer, but your subconscious is like, oh, okay, right, I'll try and come up with an answer for you with that. That's why you don't ask yourself the question, why am I so poor? Why am I broke? It's like, because the subconscious is, yeah, here are all the reasons, and just carry on being broke. So my intent for 2025 is to simply just do what I do really well, which is have great conversations. And I think what's come to me, and again, it's your fucking fault, man. It's all out of the conversation with you. Welcome. So just take it, all right? Just none of this shirking responsibility shit. It is I can do that by helping other people do the same. And I've come to this this idea, if you like, that you're only 3 conversations away from your ideal dream life, because those people are going to want to work with you, collaborate with you, they'll connect you to other people, whatever. But the only way you can get to those 3 conversations is to have as many high quality conversations as you can with as many people as you can. And how do you have high quality conversations? Well, you just follow the process that Pete's done with Not a Straight Line and all of his guests and everything else. And what you were saying on our call is, like, if you see the results that somebody has and you want those results, then just fucking copy them. And provided that there is a semblance of resonance between what you're copying and who you are as a human, then you're likely to get similar results. And I think the great thing about this process, which I'm kind of, and you're only the 3rd or 4th person that I've articulated this to. The first was my voice memo app. And I downloaded my thoughts, and it said, what the fuck are you talking about, man? But it's gone through. I had a validation call this morning, and I just, my thoughts were all over the place. And then I talked to my wife over breakfast, and then I left a voice note for my collaboration partners and Activate Your Podcast. So it's the same with anything. When you articulate your thoughts, stuff gets clearer. And the great thing about this process, so you shared with me that you saw in the sales guy that you wanted their results was similar to you, similar in age, in socioeconomic situation, and white male and whatever. So it was relatively easy for you to copy. And the great thing about what I'm suggesting people copy is that it's something that we all do innately anyway as humans, and that's have conversations with people. What I'm saying is just become far more intentional about the type and the quality of those conversations and who those conversations are with. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that so far?
That all makes sense.
Thank you. So one of the ways that I've started to put a framework around this, my subconscious, every morning I do visualization, hypnosis, breath work, and every morning since I've started asking myself this affirmation, stuff's been coming to me about what to do to move this forward. And there's a few things that have happened. And it also brings in a filmmaker friend of mine, Rich. Rich and I made a film last year. It's in post-production. We hope to get it into film festivals next year. He's the guy that edited my 2 testimonial videos that are out there now. The first one I edited after I'd had 10 conversations with people on my podcast. And it basically, because at the end of every conversation, I ask my guests just to leave a 30, 60-second testimonial, if you like, about what it's like being in conversation with me. So Rich cut 10 of those, the first 10 conversations, into a 60-second video. And then just last week, just Monday this week, so just a couple of days ago, I've had another 30 conversations, at least another 30 conversations since then. And we edited another 60-second video again. But because I've had more conversations, I've got more practice. It's an ever clearer articulation of the kind of conversation that you'll get when you have a conversation with Pete, if that makes sense. And I'm thinking of those videos as like conversation magnets. So you create them for yourself, you put them out in the world to attract people to you to have conversations which the both of you think that you will benefit from. So for you and me, it would have been, well, in a sense I did, because I sent you a connect request on LinkedIn, and somehow I attracted you into conversation with me. But this comes back to the whole intentional aspect of it. Get really intentional. Figure out what it is that you want. Figure out who it is that you want to be in conversation with, and how you want to feel, and how you want your conversation partner to feel in that conversation, and create a conversation magnet that puts it out into the world. And the people that respond to that conversation magnet, that 60-second video edit of a 2-hour conversation with me, is going to attract the kind of conversations that are going to help you transform your life. So the value that a guest gets of being on the Not a Straight Line, or this is one of the things that came to me, and I'm sorry if it's kind of all tangential, I'm hoping you can kind of keep a handle on it, is what I've done with the free podcast booking schedule. It's only open on Wednesdays now, Wednesday afternoon. So you can have a free 2-hour conversation with me, no issue, but you're going to have to wait to have a podcast conversation. Or if you know that you want a conversation magnet, you know that your life and your business is going to be better in 2025 and beyond if you increase the number of ever higher quality conversations with ever more people, then you can jump the queue, £500, have a 2-hour conversation with me, and you get your conversation magnet at the end of it, which is then going to start you on the process. And then when you've had, maybe half a dozen or 10 conversations, you may realize that in order for those conversations to be even more effective and more productive, you could actually send the person that you're going to be in, the person that responded to your conversation magnet, you can send them the first 5 episodes of your podcast, which has been activated by Activate Your Podcast. Because when the person that responded to your conversation magnet gets into conversation with you, it's almost like they've been in conversation with you already for half an hour, 35 minutes by listening to the first 5 episodes of your activated podcast. So yeah, that's kind of like the sales process, I think, for Activate Your Podcast. And just to finish off, before I let you speak, and this podcast is about you, so you will get to speak eventually, don't worry, is whether this conversation we have now, we could create it with the intent of creating your conversation magnet. And by way of doing that if in this conversation, you do what you do best. So I'm doing what I do best, which is holding space for this conversation. You do what you do best in helping me get clarity on what I've just dumped down to you.
Yeah.
Then in your conversation magnet, people will get a really clear idea about not only who you are and how you are in conversation, but how you're going to be able to help them because they've heard how you've helped me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, let's do it. Easy. Nice. It's nice to hear that you've had a lot of inspiration, and I can feel the level of enthusiasm that's coming through. There's a saying that I never quite remember the exact wording of it, but it's a Buddhist saying that says something on the lines of, I know the gist of it, which says, enthusiasm can make you blind. Okay, so something that I always do for myself when I feel enthusiasm arising, as much as enthusiasm is great with creativity, is then always temper it with, okay, I'm going to give myself a balanced perspective. Where are the negatives? Which isn't a negative mindset.
No.
It's about having a clear view of all. Because I'm Pisces, so I can be all over the place.
And I guess that's why I started off by saying that this conversation we're about to have might end up being the most valuable one that we have in the whole of 2024, because of all the people that I've spoken to in 2024, you're the one person that I want to, and I know a lot of people. You're the one person that I want to give me that balanced, not feedback. I don't know what. Yeah, that balanced view, and in that, a listener, viewer, or whatever, a listener to this episode and a viewer of your conversation magnet that comes out of this will be like, fucking hell, yes, I get Alastair. Can I like that? Just the way he was questioning Peter in response to what Peter vomited over him verbally. It's like, I want some of that in my life. I want a conversation with Alastair.
Nice. And thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. And I'm good at receiving. Some people find it real trouble. I'm not for me. I like it. So how's the next step? What do you want to, how do you begin this? How did you have in mind to begin the process?
So we were going to, at the end of recording the non-straight line podcast episode that you booked onto, exploring your non-straight line journey, we were going to set aside an hour to talk about the sales process around Activate Your Podcast. I wonder whether we can do that publicly, and in that weave in your non-straight line journey through life, because I'm sure that you will say things and ask me questions, which will then prompt questions for me about, do you know what I mean? Actually have a almost a meta purpose overarching your non-straight line journey, which is creating content for your 60-second conversation magnet. So we were going to, at the end of recording the non-straight line podcast episode that you booked onto, exploring your non-straight line journey, we were going to set aside an hour to talk about the sales process. I wonder whether we can do that publicly, and in that weave in your non-straight line journey through life, because I'm sure that you will say things and ask me questions, which will then prompt questions for me about your non-straight line journey.
Okay. I think the place that I feel would be good to start, it's funny with ideas. One of my favorite clients is called Nick, and he runs a company called the Ideas Agency. And he basically just helps people to innovate new ideas. And he's very, very good and has a very good process to unpack ideas and come up with new suggestions. The reason he comes to mind is one of the things that I can see with this idea is that this is it's like a new flowering bud, which is only going to evolve more and more and more. So we're just at the beginning of the flowering, right? So,
I have that sense too.
yeah. So let's see if we can just help it go a little bit more in that same direction. So I think what you've identified very clearly. Oh yeah, and that was the other thing I was saying about ideas. Is ideas, as you say with your affirmations, is you ask your subconscious a question, and then it arrives to you, right? So in essence, that's the same with all ideas. All ideas just arrive. So the universe, and Nick has said he's read books on this, where they just plop into your head from the cosmos, as it were. And if you don't do anything with them, they'll go to someone else. And I remember even when I was 15, walking out of school and seeing someone smoking. And I remember saying to the guys walking down the road with Craig, saying, they should make a cigarette which is like made of steam. So, there was the cosmos going, there's a little idea. Obviously, I was too young to do anything about it. And then many years later, many years later, they create one, which is basically the same format. So here is an idea that has arrived for you, and the resonance is within your system to then take it forward. And what you're articulating around what the idea is, I think the value proposition is very good in the sense that when your prospects can actually see in real life the value of the conversation that your prospect will get by having with you, that has enormous amounts of value to help increase your conversion rates. It's not the be all or end all, but it is a cog in the help to convert, right? So it's one of the cogs in the help to convert. And then it's putting a price point on that, right? So the price point on, well, how much is that one cog worth in this machine that is the sale? Because that's what we're talking about, right? Even this is part of the sales process. And actually, the easiest way to sell anything is by attaching a revenue to it. So you go, okay, well, with practice and with time and with testing, you will eventually get very clear case studies where you can demonstrate, before XYZ customer had this conversation and this video snippet with me, the conversion rate was 20%. Since incorporating this as part of the sales journey in email collateral, LinkedIn collateral, on the web page, in the YouTube channel, on their own podcast and so on, their conversion rate is now 60%. So we can quantify that from a conversion rate which brings in, say, whatever it is, let's say it brings £1,000. Every client is worth £1,000. And every 10 clients would be worth £2,000. Now every 10 clients is worth £6,000. The difference in revenue is enormous. And not only have we got a higher conversion rate, we're actually getting more leads. So the lead rate has gone up and the conversion rate's gone up. Now, what that does for you, or Pete, is it allows you to charge more for your offering. At the moment, before proof of concept, it's very hard to do that. So I think you'll have to test the price point of £500. I wouldn't have that set in stone. I would try 500. I would try also 250 and maybe one higher, right? So you've got 3 different price points.
I mean, well, just on that though, there is a hard cost to me. There's about 6 hours of editing time to take a 2-hour conversation into a 60-second video, and that's £300. So the lowest I could go is 300, but then that would not value my that would not value my time. That would just be 300 to Rich.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Interesting.
And just to add this in there is that I want everybody to have ever higher quality conversations with ever more people, and you can do it for free. I'm not putting anything behind a paywall. You can have a 2-hour conversation with me, which can lead to your own 60-second conversation magnet. You can have that for free by coming onto my podcast. It'll take you a while to have that conversation because at the moment I'm booking into March. But when you have that conversation, I will give you the 2-hour video, the raw footage of the 2-hour video and audio, and you can edit it yourself or find someone else to create your 60-second video. Or you can just pay us £500 and we'll bring all of Rich's storytelling, filmmaking, editing experience to bear, not only just in general, but also in creating these specific things, these conversation magnets.
So I reckon what might be worth playing with there is having that as your bump. So it's 200. So if you want to book for a free session, you can do. It's Wednesday slots, Wednesday afternoons, right? At the moment, we've got a 3-month waiting list. Now, if you want to bring that closer and you want to have Monday slot, next Monday, for example, then it's £250. Okay. And for that, you can get your 2-hour and you can do whatever you like with it, right? So you get edit rights, or I don't know what the legal terms are for this industry.
Yeah.
Now, we have the best of the best editor. So if you wanted to get this, and here's all our examples of the edits. If you want to get this style edit with someone who's tried, tested, and trusted, an industry expert, it's £300 to do the editing. But you can make that choice after the podcast. So breaking it down into the £250, which is the value proposition of your time. This is the value you're getting me helping you with the conversation, separate to the editing. And that can be an upsell because the 250 makes it's easier to swallow. I think at 500, people go, "Oh, £500." And again, you might test it. I might be wrong. It's just an instinct that I'm giving you this feedback. But at 250, people probably go, "It's worth a punt," right? And once they've got it and they go, "Oh, that was really good," we're like, "Look, editing is £300. He's the best of the best. It's worth doing." in someone's mindset, the psychology won't be, oh, that's cost me £550. The psychology will be, oh, it's 300 quid and it's 250 quid.
Do you know why I know that it's a great idea that you've just shared with me? Because in some sense, I've already had it. So I've created a booking link, which so I've changed the public facing book onto the podcast, the link that you used. That's now Wednesdays only. It's going into March. I've also created the private one, which has a payment link on it. I put the setting on my CRM that someone can book an appointment for £100. So all you're telling me to do is to make that 250.
Yeah. 250, I think is a very fair price considering the amount of time. And it's not like you're just booking for a consultation. You're also getting video access and edit rights and, featured on your own podcast and so on. So they're getting quite a lot of exposure from a PR perspective. And I think anyone who is a marketing director would go, actually, no, that's a pretty good value proposition. So I think that will be a nice, easy upsell. So you would have your bump. So in the e-commerce funnel, you would call that a bump, right? And on high level, they call it a bump product, right? So you've got your 250, and then you've got your bump. And then from that, you then it's then easier to upsell again. So once they've come on board for that and they've got their edit, there's different things you could then offer, which is, so a lot of people will be very, very uneducated around what do I do with that video, right? So it might be they need support with how to do that. So it might be a case of, again, another upsell could be giving them an education piece around, well, these are all the different platforms that we would suggest adding this to. Add it to your newsletter. Here's a how to. Add it to your LinkedIn comms. Add it to here.
Basically, just goes everywhere.
Goes everywhere. Or it might be that you give that information for free anyway when you give them the video edit access. And then the next thing after that is about. Tell me what's the goal after that?
So you've got your conversation magnet, and you find yourself now in better quality conversations because you've articulated who it is that you want to be in conversation with. So just going back to the kind of overarching thing is that you're only three conversations away from your ideal life, is that every conversation you have is going to be helping you get clearer about what it is that you want, what you're looking for. So there's going to come a point in when you've had those conversations that you think, well, is there a way that I can make these conversations even my grammar's shit, how I can make them even higher quality, go deeper, more productive, more effective use of the hour that I'm spending with this person in conversation? So yes, there is. You can activate a podcast. You don't need to worry about recording episodes forever and ever and a day. You're just going through the Activate Your Podcast to get your first 5 pillar episodes, which gives somebody who's potentially going to be in conversation with you a really great sense of what it's like in conversation, because we take a 2-hour, an even deeper conversation than you had with Pete for the Not a Straight Line podcast. It's an even deeper conversation where we take material from your podcast conversation and this activation call conversation, and we craft your story over 5 episodes. And it's about you. It's about, why you do what you do, who do you serve, why do you serve them, what problems. But there's a very strong story, narrative, engaging. Each episode is 5 to 10 minutes. Somebody who's attracted to your conversation magnet, as part of your follow-up with that new person you're going to be in conversation with, as part of your follow-up with them, you encourage them to listen to the first 5 episodes of your podcast. By the time they get in conversation with you, they feel like they know you already. And I just had it yesterday. I had a curiosity call with someone, and within the first 30 seconds, it was like, I've been really looking forward to this call. I feel like I've been in conversation with you for the last hour and a half, because he's been listening to my podcast, the first 5 episodes of my podcast. So then you activate your podcast through Activate Your Podcast.
Okay, cool. So
before we go there, can we just go right back to the beginning of the process, which we've not really explored? And that is the curiosity call that I just mentioned. How would you, and I'm getting, between 5 and 7, I'm having between 5 and 7 curiosity calls a week in my diary from my LinkedIn DMs and connect requests. How would you conduct that curiosity call to maximize the take up of the conversion to that initial 250 call? I know how to get people onto the free version.
Okay.
I've been doing that for the last 5 months. So now that there is this 2 options, how do I do it without being salesy? And because I promise people on LinkedIn that there's no pitch slap. It's just me. I'm not a dick. Get a curiosity call. And my just before I let you answer all of the questions, is the thing I think really, Alastair, that's underpinning all of this is something that I was reminded of in my visualization this morning. And that's a quote from the late, great Zig Ziglar. And that is, you can have, I wish I could do his accent. It's just so unique. Do you know Zig? Have you heard of Zig Ziglar?
I'm really bad with names. I might know.
I'll send you a YouTube link. But he's famous for saying that you can have everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want.
Yeah.
You can help have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And that's how I'm thinking that I want to approach these curiosity calls. I have no problem booking them. Now there's just a little bit more intent and purpose and structure and process around them, really. But it's coming from the point of view of, let's say you and I were getting on a call, curiosity call. It's, initial like that sign behind your shoulder, whatever. So I'm really curious. The reason I call this a curiosity call is I'm really curious, Alastair. Well, what do you want? What's yeah. And then because that's what I'm in the business of, is helping people get what they want. So tell me, and then we're starting there. So
cool. So following the same methodology as I would always follow. So if we were talking about the beginning part of curiosity, naturally you would start with your general rapport. If I'm going real back to basics, right? So your general rapport, which I know that you're very good at naturally anyway.
Just for those that aren't, just for the listener, the listener who's listening to this episode might not identify with being somebody that's able to build rapport. How do you do that?
You remind me of my very first sales job. So my very first sales job was doing door-to-door sales, selling gas and electric. And I had a script for building rapport that all of my team then copied. And I remember once being in a customer's house with someone I was training, and we both said it at the same time. And it was always the same, which was, how long have you lived here for? It's a really nice area, isn't it? And that's how it would begin. And then there would be a series of questions after that. So you can script rapport. And the way that I always start a discovery is scripted. For anyone who is a current customer of mine, you'll know this from having heard me say this before, which is I'll always start with, in fact, I think you stole it from me, Pete. I laughed with my girlfriend because I start with, so where in the world are you? And when you sent me that recording, I was like, he copied it, because I was sat on the sofa with my girlfriend watching it. I was like, he's stolen my line. So I was like, where in the world are you? So then I'd ask general questions around, well, it depends if there's seasonal things. Are you ready for Christmas? If it's a Monday, how was your weekend? General chit chat things that you would expect. And then once I feel that we've built enough of that type of general rapport, and it's very personality dependent. Some people are quite closed and not receptive. Some people are quite open and willing to talk. And so I judge it based on that. And then go.
Just hang on a second. So you said you wrote this script, which the team then followed. Did you just create that yourself?
Just created myself, yeah.
Why?
Because funny enough, I actually struggled in creating just general chit chat. And so if I didn't have a structure to follow, I'd be a bit all over the place. And there's something that happens in sales that most people don't teach us, is if you have too much rapport and you haven't moved on to business yet, you actually lose the sale, because you actually become too much of a friend and that you lose a certain level of professionalism. So there's a fine line between going too far in rapport building before you move onto business.
How long should it take?
Depending on how long you've got scheduled. So I think 5 minutes is more than sufficient to build up a decent level of rapport before you then start moving into business matters. And you can even Google it, right? So you'll be able to Google what are some good rapport questions, but just generally ask, literally even my door-to-door question said, where in the world are you based? Oh, I'm based in London. Oh, that's a nice place. How long have you been there for? Have you always been based there? Yeah, okay. And do you work from home or you're in an office? And if there's stuff in their environment I can see on Zoom, I'll always point out, but I can see, that's really nice.
Like I did with your sign.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly like that. Yes, that's a really classic technique. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Okay, I was thinking about doing something like that. And then that can lead on to a third.
Yeah, and just for the listener, the sign above Alastair's left shoulder says, authenticity knows no competition. Authenticity knows no competition. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. My motto.
So you've talked about the verbal stuff there. What about non-verbal stuff in building rapport?
Interesting. It depends on whether you're in person or not.
Let's assume that the calls are going to be virtual.
Okay, so if it's virtual, being relaxed but engaged. Something since I moved into this place, which is only a few months ago, I've got this lovely view on my right hand side. And I notice a really bad trait of mine is I keep looking out the window when I'm talking to people. I know I shouldn't do that. It's like slap on the wrist. If I was my own sales director, I'd go, no, you shouldn't be doing that. So it's about being really, really engaged, but also being very relaxed. And I think the main thing is being authentic to who you are, right? So if whatever your natural stance is doing that. So I can tell that you stand, right? So you're standing on these calls. So that is clearly more natural for you. But I look really awkward standing because that's not me. I'm way too lazy. I like to just sit back and chill, right? So it's about being really authentic with it.
And what about the, what I've heard about mirroring?
Oh yeah, mirroring. Yeah, so mirroring that has a big impact in person. Strangely, from my experience, mirroring is less so when it comes to body language, because when you're in person with someone, mirroring it is insanely effective, right? So you can mirror someone's. You want to mirror someone's eye contact. So a novice salesperson or a novice sales manager would teach their team to maintain good eye contact, right? So that would be a novice sales trainer. A really, really top sales trainer would say you mirror the eye contact, because if you're staring at someone, if you're maintaining eye contact with someone who's too anxious, they've got too much anxiety to maintain eye contact with you, they're going to feel super restricted and they're going to look really far away, right? And so they're actually going to build a wall. Whereas if they're looking at the floor, if you look at the floor, you disarm them, right? So they're much, much more relaxed. So those things have a big, big impact. And then you can even mirror people's facial expressions when they raise their eyebrow, if their nostrils flare, where their cheeks, the cheek muscles here, their mouth, their hand movements, are they leaning, are they relaxed, they're breathing. If you do it to the T, someone will just be so resonant with you, they will do whatever you ask. And I remember training people in the past doing this on the doorstep with people. And I remember I was telling a friend this, funny enough, I was telling a friend this at the weekend. I was on the door with someone and I said, now I'm going to show you about how taking control. And I was using mirroring. And I had this person, I said, oh, do you mind getting me a drink? Oh, do you mind showing me this? Oh, do you mind if I sit there? I was like, do you mind if you come outside? Do you mind show me that? And she just had it going all over the place because it was so easy. But that wasn't, that didn't happen by accident. It happened because I had done the mirroring so well and so acutely that at some point the subconscious is going, oh, that's me. I'm looking at myself. So it makes a big impact in person. Funnily enough, on Zoom or a video meet, it's much less.
Not so much. I just want to go back to something you said earlier, that your first job was as door-to-door sales. And I know from having been in the sales world long enough that if your first experience of sales is door-to-door, Zig Ziglar, he was a door-to-door sales guy as well, sold kitchenware, pots and pans and stuff. And so was that your first job out of school?
That was when I was at college, I did telesales. So there was but it wasn't telesales actually. It was telemarketing, doing surveys on behalf of Tesco's, would you believe? And that was like mega easy. And then when I was at uni, in my summer, I found this door-to-door sales job, and it was an MLM, a multi-level marketing organization. And so you could basically build a team until you were earning the company enough revenue, they give you a franchise for free, right? And so that's what it was. So I continued in that. It's called APCO. It's the largest direct sales organization in the world. So I went up that ladder, and yes, that was my first. And because that is I would consider that the hardest of the hard in terms of sales positions. Everything else has been easy since.
But so what got you into it? I mean, what were you into at school? Was there any indications, from young Alastair that was where you were going to go?
I, from a very young age, knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. So even, funnily enough, it's in my blood. My great granddad was very wealthy entrepreneur. My granddad, wealthy entrepreneur. My dad was a business owner. So it's very much in my blood.
Right.
But even though that funnily enough wasn't the influence, it just doesn't resonate for me to be an employee.
Mm.
So yeah, I knew that I was going to be in business. And so I was studying university business studies. And then I actually quit in that summer job to continue that instead. And my dad actually said, why at university to learn how to run a business? Just go and do this. And you're going to learn so much more from a practical nature than you would learning from a book. And actually, I agree. And I'm pleased that I did do that. I don't know anyone who's using their degree now. It's
business or otherwise. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Don't waste some money. So I don't speak too highly of university degrees unless legally you're bound to have it, right? For your whatever career you want to be in. So I knew that, yeah. So I knew. So that's how I got into doing sales. But I was absolutely shit when I first started doing sales. Total crap. And I really struggled for months and months and months. And then I got okay, but still not good. And considering it was commission only.
And was that, are you measuring that purely on the sales that you got, or were there other aspects of it?
No, just on results. Yeah,
just on
on
results,
results.
okay.
Yeah, results. And then when I went and did training with someone who was previously the number one salesperson in the UK in that organization, like I told you before, the resonance between me and him was just so similar. You know, we looked relatively similar. He was a bit taller. I'm a short guy. He was a bit taller than me, but apart from that, he looks very similar to me. His mannerisms same. He was Southern British. You know, all these kind of things. And so I recognized in watching him that if I just copy absolutely everything identically, his tone of voice, his mannerisms, the way he walks, his work ethic, even his attitude, you know, copying his attitude, then it was impossible for me not to get the same results. And 2 weeks later, I was the number one salesperson in the company, in the country, and I maintained that position for a year and a half.
Within 2 weeks?
Within 2 weeks. So within 2 weeks of just digesting everything, I phoned him every day going, I had this objection. What's your rebuttal there? I had this objection. What's your rebuttal here? What would you do? Every single day. And I just went like a sponge. And then that was it. I found sales easy from that moment onwards because I was completely convinced in my own ability. First, I built confidence in the system, which is once I could see it work so well for him, and I knew if I copied it, I would get. So first, my confidence wasn't built in myself. The confidence was, I know it works because I can see him doing it.
Okay.
So once I was convinced the system worked by watching somebody else follow it so acutely, I knew that if I replicated it, it would work. And then my confidence built. So interestingly, people go, oh, you need to build your confidence, but you don't need to build your confidence. You just need to be confident that the system you're following is going to work.
So what if the listener listening to this episode is like, that sounds great in practice, but I don't have a system that I can follow that has the results that I'm...
The proof of concept.
The proof of concept, yeah. What do you do in that example?
So if you don't have a sales process at all that you know works, well, you would speak to someone like me and then you figure it out, or you're going to figure it out.
Okay, so you're talking about... So what you're talking about is confidence in the sales process.
It's confidence in the sales process, but also your sales technique, not just the sales process, your sales technique. So as long as you know that your sales process and your sales technique is on point, then you will get results, and possible not to, right? So when you're a new business in a new market and you don't have a previous case study to go by, right? So you don't have proof of concept that your product can sell, there's a little bit of trial and error. And once you've got your first sale and you can refine that process, so you know, oh, these were the selling points that make, then you replicate it. And then if all the different case studies that or cases, not case studies, the cases you come across where you're like, oh, this was the selling point. This was the selling point. Eventually what you have is you have this list of different selling points based on all of the challenges and pains that come up in your conversations, all of the solutions you can deliver, and then every person that this can be sold to will be sold to. And you don't need to question whether or not this is down to your sales ability. You know they're going to buy if it's the right product for them or the right service.
So is that the first step then in figuring out if the listeners listen to this, they own a business, the only answer to the question, do you have a sales process, is
yeah, which is nice. Yeah.
Is that, apart from contacting you, is that the first step in figuring out the sales process, is just going through all of your people that you have sold to, and what does the listener have to do?
So I would follow this methodology. If we go right back to the beginning, which is building rapport. So we'll go through the steps of this. This is going to be your perfect sales process in the B2B world. In the B2C world, there's differences. In the B2B world, then you've built your rapport. At some point, you will recognize it's time to move on to business, because there's normally a slight pause, and you can see in someone's eyes and the fact that they've paused, they're going, now I'm ready to talk about business. So you've got to wait for that moment, and there's always that opportune moment. And the easy way into conversation to then go into your curiosity call, or what I would call a discovery call, is then go, so how's business? Tell me about what you do. And then you might look at their website and you might go, I can see that you do this. And then it's an open-ended question and allow someone to talk about themselves. Now, I do, prior to a curiosity call, a lot of due diligence. So if they're a UK-based company, an LTD, I'll check them out on Endole, so I'll know what their revenue is and what their revenue...
On what? Check them out on what?
So Endole, endole.co.uk or .com, not sure. You can type in any limited company or company number, and it will come up with the accounts for 5 years, depending on how long they've been running. So you'll know before you speak to them have they got 100 grand in the account or have they got 10 grand in the account? So before you even speak to them, you'll know what their level of affordability is likely to be. It's not going to, people can have big years and it won't have been reported yet. But in general, you'll have some idea. So you can find that out immediately. And then depending on what your product or service is, I run marketing agencies. So I will check out loads of things. So I'll check out their website. There's loads of things I'll be assessing on their website, what I think their conversion rate is going to be looking like, depending on what their call to actions are and what methodology they're following, what their social media is. Are they posting on social media? How regularly? What type of content? Do they have good brand? Do they have a presence? I'll also use different software. So SpyFu is something I use where you can paste the domain in there. It's going to tell me, are they doing Google ads? Have they got any SEO rankings? Who are their competitors? I check them out on Facebook ads library so I can see, have they got any Facebook ads running? So within about 4 or 5 minutes, once you're practiced to that, that's like 4 or 5 minutes, I'll know so much about your company. I can ask you so many detailed questions. You'll be amazed that I'm even asking you the question in the first place.
And would you counsel me to do the similar kind of research before my curiosity call with someone?
Definitely. Absolutely.
And have you documented that anywhere? Is that something that we can give the listener, those website addresses and your process, so that they can kind of get to 4 or 5 minutes quicker?
Yeah. Do you know, I'll publish a blog post afterwards so that due diligence is available. And I'll ping you the link. So yeah, so you're joining the call, you're building the rapport, you've already done your due diligence, so you've already got everything you need to know. And I normally have all the tabs open in front of me, so I don't even need to remember it. I just got it in front of me, and then I can ask the questions, these leading questions, based on what I'm looking at. First is an open-ended question around, so tell me about business, and then I'm going to start doing what I call consultative sales, which is then leading them to tell me about what their goals are. I'm going to go, so what are your goals over? And in reality, there is no time period. Okay, so it could be over the next year, over the next 3 years, 5 years. There's so Sandler's sales training company. They have this great sales line, which is if I had a magic wand, or if you had a magic wand, and I could give you anything, what would that be, right? And then it gives people the opportunity to really talk about their goals better. Most of the time, 90% of the time, people don't have a goal. Okay, so the majority of people that you speak to, they won't have any kind of insight around, what their revenue expectations are. Another way that I often position that is go, are you looking to exit the business at some point? Now, most business owners are kind of, I would say, normally under the delusion that there's a 5-year plan, because that's what people say. You've got a 5-year plan, you're going to exit in 5 years. In reality, to actually exit a business is quite tough, right? So you need to have a lot of things in place, because I used to do a bit of business broking. So you've got to have a lot of things in place that are very, very solid in order to be able to demonstrate your value to another person. And you need to be able to remove yourself from the business so you're not in it at all in order to be able to sell it. Because otherwise, if all of your business is based on relationships you hold, well, you can't sell that business for any value to somebody else, right? So that's another way of being able to get people's goals. Go, are you looking to exit, right? So if they are under the impression they want to exit, however justified or unjustified that is, let's say they say, I want to exit in 3 years, go, okay. So in order for you to exit, what does your revenue need to be, right? Then even if they don't know, they'll start calculating it. They go, well, if I want to sell it, the normal is 3 times, right? People will have the idea that they can sell 3 times their revenue or their profit. That is not true, right? You can't. Most businesses will sell for 1 year of their profit. A lot of people don't recognize that. Or if you've got a SaaS model, it could be up to 16 times your profit. So the variation, depending on what your business model is, absolutely enormous. How sticky is your business? So there's loads of different factors to that. But let's say we take it by 3. Okay. So they go, I would like to sell the business for 10 million. People will pluck these figures out there, 10 million. Okay. So 10 million. So let's imagine you need your profit to be 3 million. How far off that goal are we now? Right. Now I'm going to get something really solid. And instead of me asking how much money you're making, which I'll know from Indol already, I'm going to get them to disclose that to me. Okay. And how many customers is that? So let's imagine, just to make mathematics easy, they go, well, I would need another 100 customers. Okay, so that's 30 customers a year over the next 3 years if you're looking to exit. And what's your current conversion rate? They go, if you had 10 appointments today, how many would you convert? They go, well, probably 3, right? So the average is 3 out of 10, right? So we go 3 out of 10. Okay, so 3 out of 10. So you would need to have 90 appointments over the next 12 months in order to hit your goal, depending on what your average value is per client, right? So now I'm breaking down their goal. So I've got, well, here's your end goal of exiting the business, right? And it might not be to exit, but most people are looking to exit at some point. This is how much I want to sell it at, however accurate that is. But let's say, And now I can find out how many customers they need based on that. And then, so it's very easy for me to then go, well, okay, well, in order to achieve that, you need 90. Well, across the year, we're looking at about, let's call it 10 appointments a month, right? Give or take 10 appointments a month, which is 3 appointments a week. Okay. How are you going to achieve that? How do you get your appointments at the moment? Right. And so then most people get their appointments from referrals. Well, how sustainable is that? How scalable is that? Is that something you would feel confident in growing and scaling to the point where you need it, where you know you're going to be getting 10 appointments a month and being able to retain that? Well, probably not, right? So now, if I were to put that to your value proposition, so we've got our general rapport, just going backtracking, we've got our general rapport, discovery. You can do all of this due diligence before, so you can ask all these open-ended questions.
And so what do you want question is similar to your what are your goals? If I'm just there to hear what they want, and it might be something in their business, but it might be personal as well. I mean, I know a fuck ton of people. It's like whatever I'm coming into these calls with the assumption that whatever someone gives me, provided there's sufficient clarity, I'm either going to be able to help them myself or I'm going to be able to connect them with somebody who can.
Sufficient clarity is the key. And I think that's what people will get with those calls with you, right? Because that also happens to some degree with me. It gives them sufficient clarity. And you can relate that personally. It's another consultative skill is go, okay, so if you were to get to that, what does that really mean? What is the end goal? You want a house, you want to be mortgage free, you want to buy a property, you want to retire. Have you thought about how much you want to retire? And what does that actually mean in real life? Well, it means that I can spend more time with my family and so on. Okay. All right. Well, what else? And so when you start connecting that to real life, things that are tangible in day-to-day life, you go, well, this means that I can wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning, means I can have breakfast and start work at 1 p.m. or not work at all. I can go to the gym at 2. I can do some voluntary work. I can spend all evening with my wife and kids, and we can do something at the weekend fun without having to think about money. And I can go on holiday 3 times a year without even having to question how much the flights are and travel business. This is all now tangible. So you start painting a picture around what does that really mean? Okay, so you get people very connected to their goal, even if they've just thought about it. 10 million, well, what does that mean, right? So for you, in terms of getting that connection is, okay, so you could follow an identical sales process. So at the moment, your goal is X. Okay, well, how are you going to get there? Right? If you have that as an open-ended question, people won't know, right? Especially when they probably on that call have only just identified what their goal is. All right. So people don't know. Okay, well, if you were to break that down in the same way, go, well, you would need this many appointments and this many customers and so on. You go, well, imagine you didn't need 10 appointments. Imagine if we could get your conversion rate to 60%. Okay, well, now you only need 6 appointments. Oh, okay.
Okay, so you're coming at it from increasing conversion. Yeah.
Increasing conversion, right? So, okay, we need 6. Now, at the moment, you're relying on referrals. Well, wouldn't it be nice to get some inbound inquiries? And inbound inquiries differ to an outbound inquiry. An inbound inquiry is already educated. They've already checked your website. They've already watched your video. They've already have an understanding about what you do. And they're already kind of sold on what you do before they even speak to you. So imagine having inbound inquiries at a 60% conversion rate. It means that you would have less work, more money, and you could hit that goal either in the same timeline, but without the pressure, or even faster. So if you could hit that goal and it was easy over the next 3 years, or if you could hit that goal and give yourself more of a challenge in 1 year, would that be worth doing?
Fuck yeah.
I just make it up as I go along, right? So anyway, in your discovery, if you can relate what you're doing to something tangible and statistical, because that's the thing. To me, I recognized even in my first sales job that statistics sell because it makes it very tangible. And you go, okay, well, 60% conversion, this many appointments equals this much revenue, which means that in this timeline, I'm going to hit this goal. Oh, that will make sense. Right? Then it's very hard to say, no, I don't want to do it because it makes sense. Then it's about proof of concept. So once you've done your curiosity and you've uncovered what their goals are and you relate it to, what does that mean for them personally and how are they actually going to get to that goal? That's your discovery. And then you're moving into a presentation. Okay. So in the presentation part, I follow a very strict methodology of going, what is it I do? That's the first thing. So in this instance, so what we help people do is we help people to have a much higher conversion rate and increased inbound leads through further direct brand awareness which is your authentic self that basically puts you in front of the right customer that helps you to hit your goal.
All right. Now you haven't used what I've been thinking of in terms of high quality conversations. You haven't used that anywhere at all. It's not about that. It's about conversions.
Yeah. Well,
but the conversions, it's like, but if you're attracting people to you who resonate with your conversation magnet that you're putting out there, that comes out of the conversation with me, then you are going to be attracting higher quality leads.
Absolutely. So you're going to get more inbound, higher quality conversations. You're using the word conversation. I'll call it leads because I come from a sales background, right? So a high quality leads, and you're going to get a high conversion rate through our podcast. Let me explain to you why that works. Now I'm going to talk about statistics because statistics do sell. So statistically, I don't know the statistics, but I'm just going to guess some stuff, right? So Google have demonstrated that having a podcast can increase your conversions by X. What we have found in our own is that having a 60-minute, 60-second, it will mean X. Your revenue increases of X, right? So you have Y.
So how you're going from the curiosity call to the selling activate your podcast, not the next stage of get your conversation magnet, get these inbound.
No, I'm going to talk about what first. So what I do for a living. So what I do, Pete, this is what I do. I do this. I help companies to get more inbound inquiries, which are really high quality conversations, and increase your conversion rate doing it. And the way that I help clients do that is through our podcast. Let me tell you why that works. Okay. So what I do is a podcast. They're very clear about what podcast is. Now the client, or I as a client, would need to know why is the podcast going to work, right? So the why is really important, and statistics sell. So the statistic analysis of that is really important to have very specific bullet points. And then also not just statistics, but education in that. So an easy way of educating something is going, now, did you watch my podcast before you joined the school? And he said at the beginning of the call, I felt like I've already been speaking to you for the past couple of hours because I've been listening to your podcast. What typically happens in that is when somebody has watched a podcast of you before a phone call, they're already sold by you. So they're sold on you, and people sell people. So when you have the conversation, as long as your value proposition is demonstrated correctly, it's already sold. So they join, and if they weren't sold by you, they wouldn't have the conversation. Yeah. So that is one of the big influences of why the podcast works and why creating this. I've forgotten the name of, what do you call it? The 60.
The pillar episodes. Oh no, the conversation magnet.
The conversation. That's why the conversation magnet is so powerful, because people have already made the decision they like you and they want to work with you before they have the call. So that's why your conversion rate increases to 60%. Not only does it increase to 60%, the quality of people that are joining your calls are much, much higher.
Okay, so I'm now in role play with you and saying, okay, but a conversation magnet, that's not a podcast. Where does that come in?
I'm so glad you asked the question. Let me explain to you how that works. Right. So now I'm going to go into the how. So we've got all the whys, and now we're going to talk about how. So the first thing that we do is we will run a 2 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hour podcast together. In that, we're going to be exploring your journey, your not straight line journey to how you got to where you are now. We're going to be teaching the world about your story. And not only are we going to be teaching the world about your story, we're going to be showcasing why you're so fucking good at what you do, right? Because there's a reason why you're doing what you're doing. It will be down to your passion and your enthusiasm and your love for what you do. We're going to show people that by me asking you questions to educate me about what you do. And by you educating me on what you do, everybody else will see, fucking hell, he knows his shit. Right? So when they join, because education sells more than anything else, just like why the statistics sells, it's the education part sells, right? So people have a real in-depth understanding around what it is they're doing, right? And why they're doing what they're doing. They go, oh, when that really makes sense and there's a resonance there, they go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You don't need to do anything else. So you're going to be educating me around what you do and why you do it. And that is what's going to sell it to your clients.
And that's done on their own time as well, before they even get face to face with me.
Yes, exactly. So the first thing we do is we have this 2-hour conversation, which is teaching the world your journey and showcasing how fucking awesome you are at what you do by you educating me on how you do what you do. And that really works. Once we've got that 2-hour piece, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic, you'll really enjoy it, right? And if you look at some of the testimonials I'm going to show you later, people fucking love it, right? It's a really, really great journey you're going to go on, okay? Once we've got that, the next piece is we're going to be editing that, right? So the first thing is you get edit access to the 2-hour piece, right? Now you can do what you want. You can chop it up and use it. What we do as included in that process is we educate you on how you can do that yourself. And then how can you use that content either on your website, in your email signature, in LinkedIn channels, a LinkedIn post, social media posts. So there's a whole range of different ways that not only can you use that content, but how to actually distribute it and then make it actually work for you. Because just having content sat on your computer does nothing. You've got to distribute it in the right way. Okay, so we're gonna educate you on how to do that. And we do also have an option where we got the best of the best in-house, right? So if you want that as a service, we've got that as an additional thing. If you want us to do that, where we will actually edit. And what we do as or what our editor will do is create, I've forgotten the name of it again.
Conversation magnet.
A conversation magnet. We will create what we call a conversation magnet, which is basically showcasing the best of you in 60 seconds that anyone who watches it is not only going to want to have a conversation, they're already sold by it.
The right kind of person, because not everyone's going to be attracted to it.
The right kind of person. Exactly. The right kind of person. So once you've got that, the impact that has on your business is immense, because what you'll find is anyone who watches that video is much higher quality. They're already sold on you. They already know that you know what you're talking about. So you don't need to sell it any longer. They're already sold on you. So your conversion rate goes up and actually your inbound inquiries increase, but the quality of those inbound inquiries is much, much greater. So it's just insane the impact it has, right? So you're going to have all this content that you can use to distribute everywhere, which is going to help with your PR, help with your branding, and showcase you teaching the world what you do, right? And what you do best. Then what we've got as a journey, let me just show you how that works. And then I would have some visuals, right? So I'd be like, okay, so the first thing is that here's me and you, right? Here's a little character of me and you. This is us having our podcast. Next step is you're going to have this content and distributing everywhere. So I'd probably have a little graphic of here's the content being distributed to all these channels. And then I'd have another graphic going, well, here's your 60-second video that you can use. I've forgotten it already. You could tell, didn't you? Conversation magnet.
Conversation magnet. Well, maybe it's not a good name for it, but it's like for me, it's like it does what it says in the tin. It attracts conversations to me.
No, I like it. I don't know why I can get. So the conversation magnet. So then you've got another arrow. So I'd have this journey going, right. So then you're going to have your conversation magnet, and then you're going to distribute that in your email and in your LinkedIn, and basically on your email signature and so on. And then at the bottom would have like having high quality conversations. Again, another kind of some kind of character of having high conversations. So you go, this is the journey you go on. Okay. Now we do have, after you've started this journey, you've seen that you love it and you've seen the impact it has. And that's the thing, you're going to see it, right? You're going to see the impact this has on your business. It's insane. Once you're really convinced by that, because we've got to build that trust between me and you. Okay. So once you've seen that this works, we have another offer, which is basically getting you to build your own podcast. And we do that and we make it very easy for you to do, because the majority of business owners just simply do not have the time. Yeah. No doubt you've had the idea of doing it. You like the idea of it. You've seen Diaries of a CEO does it and he runs 25 businesses at the same time. You're like, how does he do that? Right. And you're like, I don't even have time to make coffee in between my Zoom calls. Right. So how am I going to do a podcast? So what we do is we make that really easy. So the first thing is you're going to book a call with us. We're going to record it. We're going to do all the editing. We're going to do all the distribution. You just got to be you, right? And there you are. You've got your podcast. So it's a fully managed service that's really easy. Now, at the moment, I'm not going to even suggest it, because you've got to build trust with me and you've got to see the proof of concept yourself. Now, we know it works, but you've got to see it for yourself. So to get on board with us, you can start for free. And you
can I ask a question just outside of the role play? Would I make reference to them having experienced it before they got on the call with me? They'll have hopefully listened to my pillar episodes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, you can. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If I was following my own structure on a web page, I would have this all written down, right? So Now we know this works, right? So before I get onto pricing, I've been talking about now proof of concept. Now we know this works. And how do we know this works? We're currently on a call, right? And I'm guessing you took this call because one, there was a resonance with it. Maybe you even watched my videos, okay? And before you joined this call, you thought, yeah, I'd like to talk to this guy, okay?
And you listen to my pillar episodes.
And you listen to my episodes. So that is what your clients will do, right? Once they know that you've got this type of content, people will want to check you out because nowadays, I always relate this to Amazon. Nowadays, the buying process or buying behavior pattern is completely different to how it used to be. Beforehand, well, let's really backdate before even I was born. You walk into the shop and you go, well, there's only two things available. It's one or the other. Which one looks slightly better? And you buy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now what happens is you want to buy something. I was laughing because I was talking to my team member about this yesterday. My girlfriend wanted to buy a new like a multi-air fryer grill oven thing that sits on your counter, ready for Christmas. And she goes, I want to buy one of these things because I'm worried that we're not going to fit everything for the Christmas dinner in our oven. I said, okay. And she starts sending me all these links. I was like, no, I can't do it like this. I was like, I need to put these into a spreadsheet and I'll research them all independently. And I'm going to check the reviews. I'm going to watch the YouTube reviews of each one of them. And I'm going to determine the pros and cons of each. And then based on that analysis, I then will make a purchase. Right. And nowadays, people won't be as OCD as me, but people will check loads of different things, check the reviews of all of them before making any kind of concrete decision. Okay. Now, when you're buying a service, people will do similar things where they're going to be looking at your YouTube channel, checking out your social media pages. They're going to be seeing what kind of stuff you're putting out content wise to determine, one, is it a real business? Do they really know what they're talking about? Do they have any case studies to demonstrate that they can do what they do? Do they have any reviews? So this is going to make a big impact, similar to how you joined this call. You did the same thing, right? You maybe have done it in greater or lesser degree, depending on how much time you had. But when you're looking to buy a service from someone, you do your due diligence to some degree already. Now, here are some of our case studies. Here you can see X person, X person, X person. Here's a video snippet. Here you can check this one. Here you can check this one. Here's this one. So we know this works, right? We know this works and we know this is going to add value to your business. Not only is it going to add value, it's just going to be a good laugh doing it, right? So it's not like one of those things where you're like, oh, a slog where I have to like figure out how to make a new landing page and write all the content and an email sequence. How many people don't do newsletters because they haven't got the capacity. That's the thing. They haven't got the capacity to come up with content once a month, right? That's the reality. And that's how difficult it is. It's not going to be like that. You're just going to be having a chat with me and it's going to be a good laugh and you're going to fucking love it. And then we do all the legwork that you don't want to do. Okay. So now I've done my proof of concept.
But what if I don't want, when I think about podcasts, I'm thinking, oh, no, I've now got to record content every week or every month. What if I don't want to carry on with it?
Well, you don't carry on.
But it's still worth having these first 5 episodes, is it?
Absolutely. So you're going to get your conversation magnet. You're going to get your conversation magnet, and that's going to have such a big impact on your business. Now, you don't have to continue and go ahead with a podcast, and maybe you get just the right amount of value that you need just from that initial starting ground, right? But if you really enjoy and it does resonate with you, I know that you're going to want to carry on, right? And the majority of the people that we work with do then go on to start their own podcast and very successfully, Now, the way that we get started, it's very, very, very low cost, right? So it's only 250 quid. And what that's going to give you is it's going to be a conversation with me for 2 hours. And, I'm trained in knowing how to structure these conversations.
And I could say, just go and listen to
it. And you'll see that there's a direct methodology where we're going to be looking at your journey. So people are sold by you and it's building your personality as an online presence, but also showcasing how much you fucking know what you're talking about, right? And that's what makes a really, really big impact. So I'm really well trained on being able to guide the conversation in a way that is going to get all of the great stuff from you that we need. The second part is then you're going to get this to edit and distribute, and we're going to give you an education piece on how to do that yourself. Or if you choose, we have the best of the best in house. We can go ahead and do that for you and create your conversation magnet, which is going to be an absolute game changer moving forward. Now, we do have the option to start free. But there's a 3-month waiting list because we only do that on a Wednesday. Okay. So if you wanted to get started with this sooner, then our first available booking would be next Tuesday at 3 p.m. if you're ready to move forward by then. Now, it depends on how bought into something someone is, right? So if someone's really bought into it, all you need to say is, that's it. and just be silent. Well, that's it. And if someone's really bought into it, they go, oh, let's just go for it. Right? Now, at 250 quid price point, it's worth a punt. Okay. That's the thing.
Particularly as they will have experienced at least some of it. They'll either have seen one of my conversation magnets, or they've listened to my pillar episodes of my podcast, or they'll have experienced some part of what it is that they're taking a punt on for 250 quid.
Yeah. It's cheap enough to not have to really even, assuming they're making more than 10 grand a year, it's cheap enough to go, well, let's just fucking do it. You don't need to think about it, right? So 250 quid. And then if you want our editor to create you that conversation magnet, you can choose to do that afterwards. And it's just 300 quid for that, for our editor. And that all goes to our editor. We don't make any profit margin on that at all, right? So then they really, again, it's that transparency, right? So they're really clear, like, okay, I'm paying for that service, and that's a totally separate service. Obviously, if they've got their own editor, they can do it themselves, right? Yeah, and it is the case, right? So you maybe find someone on Fiverr, but then you've got the risk: are they going to be good enough, and all the rest of it. Now, later, once you've done that and you've experienced it and you've seen the value that we have, and it resonates with you to have a podcast of your own, then for 1,500 quid a month, then you'll be. I can't remember what your price point is, but let's say it's 1,500 quid a month. Then what you're going to get from that is basically a monthly call with me, which is basically going deeper into these discoveries.
One of the conversation partners,
One of the conversation partners, which is basically going to be going in more detail around services and story. Okay, so it's educating your clients through the podcast that you know what you're talking about through very clear, concise questions. Also finding more about you, your mindset, and who you are as an individual. And the two things put together makes it a winning sales piece. Okay, and we do all the shit that you don't want to do. So we're going to do all of the editing and so all you've got to schedule into your calendar is one call with your conversation partner a month. So it's really easy to manage. Now, we're not going to ask you to do that yet. Let's get you on board for the first thing first. What do you think? Right? Now, if someone's not that sold, my follow-up process is, let me send you an email. It's going to be an email template. I haven't written it especially for you, right? A big email template. It's going to have everything in it, everything bullet pointed, really easy to follow, and read it, digest it, watch some of the videos, listen to the podcast, see the testimonials that we got. We know that this is going to work for you. And then let's have a follow-up same time next week, if that works for you. And then I'm going to look away from the Zoom call. I'm going to be looking at my calendar. I'm going to be looking, and I'm just waiting for you to agree to a time. I've never not booked a call, right? So when I've got a novice salesperson, they go, oh, but the excuse they'll give me is they'll go, oh no, but they weren't ready to book a next call. I'll be like, no, it's bullshit. They definitely were ready to book their next call. You just didn't use the right technique to do it, and it's normally a lack of confidence.
Yeah, because it's why I have a business. I'm resonating with. I'm now in your position. I'm resonating with me. I came at the conversation from a desire to help. I'm asking about what you want, and it might be stuff that I can help you with, or I can put you in touch with other people that I know. I've come at it very much from helping other people get what they want, and ultimately, what I can provide is higher quality inbound inquiries and a higher conversion on with those as a result of what we do. So, I mean, that in this call, I kind of knew that, I suppose, but to hear it articulated from you, who doesn't. I mean, we only first met last week, I think, was the first time. So everything that you've role played in this call, I mean, your role play alone should show the world how fucking good you are at what you do, because you've sold me my service without really knowing what my service is.
I'll send you an invoice, don't I? For your own
listen, in all of that, I do have another question from the end of that process, but in all of that you described, it seems like sales is all you've ever done in your life. Is that true, or have you taken other paths and explored other things?
I think sales has been the predominant career. So I have explored other things. So there was a year I took out where I was like, oh, maybe I want to become a therapist, after kind of spending a year kind of exploring spirituality and more internal development.
What predicated that? What kind of led to that desire to go down the spirituality route?
So I think for the majority of the time, I think it's very rare that this happens in any other situation. The majority of people who are looking at spirituality is quite a broad term, which can be off-putting to people. They go, spirituality. Spirituality really just means an learning and understanding about you and all the facets that exist within you. And so for the majority of people who want to learn that about themselves and take the time to discover more about themselves is normally because they're in pain.
Right. So what
so,
pain were you in?
so I have an enormous amount of I'm avoiding using the word trauma because trauma is so overused nowadays. It's described to fucking talk about a broken nail, right? So everyone goes, "Oh, trauma of it all." But actually, no. If you know, in real English language, trauma would be describing something on the lines of being a war victim, right? Or being in a hurricane, or So
Well, I guess I've heard the distinction like trauma with a capital T or a lowercase t.
interesting. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, no, because the sense of abandonment that a child feels at 2 years old when they're crying for 2 hours and their needs aren't met, that abandonment does cause, from a neurobiological development perspective, there is trauma there
Yeah,
with a lowercase t.
yeah, and I agree. I agree. In that terminology, that is the right term. But for my own self, I'm
Yeah,
trying to just use the terminology of charged memories.
charged memories. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and also it changes the perception of it because trauma then has such a negative connotation. It can create a victim identity of going, oh, well, I've had this trauma. Go, well, I've got a lot of charged memories that need uncharging.
Mm.
And so as I started to explore that within myself. So to answer your question, what is it that made me do that is enormous amounts of pain as a simple answer. So I would say I had chronic anxiety for many, many, many years. And so when I first started learning how to meditate, I sometimes would meditate for 8 hours because the only time I wouldn't experience anxiety was when I was really deeply meditating. So I would just spend days just meditating. Literally, there was a long period of time I stopped watching television because whenever I was watching television, the anxiety would arise because I'm not fully present within myself. And so, because my presence was on the television and not within me, anxiety would arise. And so, I stopped enjoying television for a long period of time. So, I stopped watching completely and would just meditate.
Do you recognize like even an earlier version of Alastair charged memories or trauma with a lowercase t that kind of cause that anxiety?
Yeah. So, I think I've got a very, very clear understanding around how well I feel for myself. I think it's only best to talk in first language. The root of all psychological and behavior patterns that are unhelpful, let's say, or even in some instances physical pain, come from a root cause trauma or charged memory, depending on how you want to position it for yourself. And to avoiding using words because people get put off by them. I mean, I don't know another word to heal that, right? Because people to heal that pain. Then, from my experience, there has to be a healing in three different dynamics, which I always consider as a triangle. The first is your mental and emotional self, right? Again, I'm trying to avoid certain words because it puts people off. It's like using the word God. People go, oh, like this, or they get too attached to it. So I'm avoiding using certain language not to put people off in listening to that. But your mental and emotional self, which will be your thought patterns and your emotional patterns, and the way that you can change your thought and emotional patterns will be a series of different mental techniques. What they call in co-counseling, which is what I'm trained in, is emotional discharge, which is basically finding root cause memory and allowing the emotion to be expressed from that memory, so it no longer is sitting in your mental or emotional body as a charged memory. There's no longer a charge, and then you can use mental techniques to change the miscreated belief system, which is then causing the behavioral thought pattern to carry on playing out. So there's loads and loads of different techniques.
So co-counseling. I've heard of a lot of counseling modalities, transactional analysis and person-centered and whatever. But co-counseling, until you mentioned it, on the first call, I'd never heard of it.
So co-counseling, I love co-counseling. So basically it is an accumulation. So the person who created, don't ask me who, the person who created it basically is an accumulation of loads of different modalities, which would be from psychoanalysis and NLP and a whole bunch of things that I've never heard of before. And it's all these different techniques which are designed to go to root cause release emotional discharge, and change the thought patterns and behavior patterns as a result. But what's great about co-counseling, it is a peer-to-peer counseling organization. So once you're trained in it, you would then book a call with a peer who is also trained in it, and you would do, say, 30 minutes each way. Go, so you're the client and they're the counselor for 30 minutes, and then you swap roles.
Wow.
And so I do that weekly with somebody where it's
on the same call. You just
on the same
together.
call. So you switch roles, and then you're now the counselor, and you swap places.
Wow.
And so, because I had a friend recently said to me, "Oh, I can't afford counselling." I said, "Well, you don't need to afford counselling. Just do training in co-counselling, and then you've got an organisation of people where you can reach out for peer-to-peer counselling for the rest of your life."
And is that worldwide?
That's worldwide, yeah. So I've co-counseled with people in India and Australia, everywhere.
So where does me and the listener go to find out about that?
Yeah, so if you were to just Google co-counseling, I'm not sure what the website address is, but again, it's a link I can send. So it's
we'll put in the show notes. Yeah,
we'll put in the show notes. Yeah, so co-counseling is something that I would highly recommend to anyone because it's going to be the most cost-effective counseling for the rest of your life. So that works on your mental, emotional body, and then you have your physical body. So trauma or charged memories are stored in the physical body, and so many modalities teach this. So the first, I believe, is in Qigong being ancient Chinese medicine in a holistic fashion, will teach you, for example, that your liver stores anger and rage as an example, right? And your lungs store grief. So your trauma or your charged memories will be existing and living inside of your body. And so in order to heal that charged memory, you don't just work on, or from my experience, I don't just work on the healing the behavior patterns and thought patterns and the emotional charge from the memory. I also then have to release it from the physical form. And that might be releasing. So if I'm working on something that is grief related, okay, well, I'll find the root cause memory. I might need to do lots of crying to release the emotional charge from that memory at the age I was that back then. Change my thought patterns so that my behavior can then change, which would be another technique. And then I might need to do TRE. So trauma release exercise is something I highly recommend to anyone. It's very easy and it's very easy for people to learn. So trauma release exercise, I think, is fantastic. Also, forms of yoga can help release trauma from the physical body. And things like, I haven't explored them, but I believe that things like Tai Chi and other things. But there's also things like tapping, and there's body work, and there's loads of different modalities to release trauma from the physical body. And that could be from your muscles, or it could be from your organs, or it could be a series of both. So then I need to do TRE. I also do yoga 3 times a week to help release trauma from the body. And then the last one will be from your energy system. So you as a human being will be not just the physical form that you see. You also exist as a mental, emotional body, but you also have a whole range of different energy layers which exist in and amongst that. And so in order to heal energy layers, so your aura being one of them, which is probably the easiest for people to digest, most people can recognize there is an aura around people. And so when you're in somebody's aura, you might feel good or you might feel shit, right? Because somebody's giving off a certain level of energy. Well, that certain level of energy is part of your energy system. So the work has to be done on an energetic level as well. So that's the third pillar. So we've got the mental, emotional body, we have the physical body, and then we have the energy system that needs to be worked on. And I personally have trained in vortex healing and also Reiki to be able to do that. It's becoming more mainstream now. So if you were to say that 20 years ago, they'd be like, it's fucking lost it. But now it's a bit more mainstream. So if I'm working on a particular trauma or charged memory, I will work on a co-counseling perspective, which is releasing the emotional charge from the memory itself, working on the behavior and thought patterns. I'll release it from the physical body with TRE and yoga. And then I'll also do energy work to release it from any other energy layer that might be where it might be also existing. And then I have a completeness to it, right? So it requires quite a lot of transformative skills. And the reason why most people who get into spirituality do because of pain, because it requires quite a fair amount of work, right? And I love Rick and Morty cartoon. And there's this great scene where there's lots of great scenes, but there's one scene where he goes to a psychiatrist, and Rick really hates psychologists. And one of the comments that she makes to him is, well, I don't think therapy is any good for you because you would find it boring and it requires work. And some people would rather die than have to do the work, like brushing your teeth or wiping your ass. you're going to have to do, it's just work, right? There's no fun that comes with it. So unless you're experiencing enormous amounts of pain, or you're some level of pain that you want to change within yourself, or your life circumstance you would like to change, because the pain can also be external around you as much as it can be inside of you, then there isn't the level of motivation to learn the skills in order to make those changes. So I explored that for a while. Now, after having done it for a while, I realized I was like, actually, no, I prefer being in business. And then I use all those skills on a daily basis now.
So use all those skills you mentioned when we had a curiosity call a week or so ago on a daily basis. You have a morning
And
ritual.
evening routine. Yeah. So my morning routine will start with doing energy work, and then co-counseling, because you can do co-counseling techniques on your own. You don't have to do them with another individual. I'll be working on the energy system and also working on my mental emotional body in the morning, and in the evening I'll do TRE. And if I'm at the gym, I'll be doing yoga throughout the day. So that way I'm hitting all three of the triangle. Now, in addition to that, in the center of that triangle is awareness. And so one of the things that I recognize that in working with very, very, very deep trauma, so things that are really serious. Yeah. So when you think, oh, worst thing that can happen to someone, okay, that one, without mentioning things. So when working on that type of thing, there has to be an enormous, already ingrained in the person, from my experience anyway, or in myself. I'll talk first party again. So in myself, what I recognize is that it was very important for me to have a very large state of awareness, so that I have the capacity to allow things to arise without becoming too identified with it, so it can then leave my system. So there's this funny balance that happens from my experience. There's this balance that happens where so in Buddhism they say the middle way, right? So you've got this kind of fence, and on one side of the fence you have embodiment, which is a more feminine way and more feminine approach, or yin energy. And then on the other side of the fence, you have being detached, right? So you become the witness, right? So in meditation, they teach you become the witness. And if you're too far gone in either side, if you go more too far into the detachment or the witnessing, then you become, from my experience, you go into what's called spiritual bypassing. We go, oh, I'm not human, so none of that's really real, right? And in truth, it's not real, right? We're all just vibrating particles of energy. So none of it's really real, right? So in truth, that is the case. But you're still a human. So if you go too far into detachment and you become too much of a witness and you disidentify too deeply with being a human being, you move into spiritual bypassing, and that becomes really toxic. And so when you meet people who are toxic positivity, that often can be a trait of character of that. And then you have the other side, which is being embodied, right? So to be balanced, you need to be fully embodied as a human. So I recognize I need to learn things. And if I cut my leg, just because I know that leg isn't really real, doesn't mean I don't need a plaster, right? So that's a really good explanation of talking what embodiment means. Go, well, I'm still a human and I still embody this human. But if you become too embodied, you become too identified. Oh, that's all I am. I'm everything that I see in front of me. And so then that it becomes toxic in itself. So becoming too identified or becoming too detached, it means that you fall into some level of toxic identification, either too de-identified or too identified with who you think you are. And being middle ground is having a state of awareness for both, allowing both to exist simultaneously, which is essentially a yin and a yang, is allowing both to exist simultaneously. So you can have a state of awareness to allow things to arise, be embodied. So in co-counseling, allowing the emotional discharge to happen, knowing that was a valid, true response as the child that was experiencing it, but not being so embodied where you're completely entrapped and going, oh my God, life is terrible. You can be a witness to it as well. There's this really fine line of being both embodied and also detached simultaneously that allows you to be able to hold capacity to work on really deep trauma. And that is a skill that for me took years, right? Years of really practicing meditation to learn how to do that.
Now, I can well imagine having a conversation with someone about the things that we've just been talking about for the last 10 minutes, and for that to take up the whole episode. But this is alongside a conversation where you have, if the listeners to this episode can't figure out that you're fucking amazing at sales, helping businesses sell what they do, then they haven't been listening. So to be able to have this, to have two completely different types of conversations with the same human, that seems pretty unique. Would you say, what, with all of what we've just been talking about, the spirituality, investigation into spirituality, which you so eloquently said is really just a investigation into yourself, who you are, and all of the skills and transformative work that you've been telling us about with the vortex energy and trauma release healing and stuff, how does that inform what we were talking about for the first bit of the conversation?
Interesting. It makes me think of a client. So I was onboarding a new client recently, and talking about how there's a particular sector we work in, and basically we run campaigns which are all near enough identical, but the success between the campaigns is enormously different. So what is the deciding factor? And the reality is, it's the business owner. And so where is that business owner in their own self-development? Because to me, being an entrepreneur is just self-development. That's all it is. And actually, the skill and learning how to do what you need to do is so easy. It's almost requires no time at all. The difficult bit is becoming the millionaire or whatever it is, your whatever your version of success is. I think it's too mainstream to consider that money is the only facet of success, when actually success can be just being able to sleep at night, right? So whatever your version of success is,
whatever you want. Going back to the very first question of the curiosity call, what is it that you want? Yeah,
absolutely, whatever it is you want. And so the business owner is the determining factor to how much abundance they bring into their life. So why do three people doing something identical have three level of results? Well, there is a blockage in one of them, or more of one of them, or blockages in them, which prevent abundance and wealth to be attracted to them easily, freely, and simply. So a really toxic masculine trait is force and control. We have to get this, and a more feminine trait would be, well, we're gonna unpack all the stuff that's stopping that from happening effortlessly, right? And I think there's a balanced approach, a middle way of being a bit of one, where you're determined, which is more of a positive masculine trait, but also allowing, which is a more feminine positive trait. So if you can be this balance of being determined and focused and tunnel vision, and at the same time working on the blockages that prevent you from actually achieving it, then you have this really lovely balance of allowing life to flow through you and at the same time achieving your goals. And to me, for anyone who is struggling to receive the outcome, I think that's the really important bit there. Anyone who's struggling to receive the outcome they're looking to achieve, well, what is it that's inside that's preventing that from happening? And for me personally, it's countless topics. So it's the lack of abundance isn't just one thing. It's not just one memory. It's, I remember my mum said we couldn't afford to buy sweets in a shop that time, which created a false belief that affordability is an issue. Of course she could afford it. She didn't want me to have sweets. It was a misconceived belief system created at that time. But there'll also be much bigger things that's connected to, not just whether or not sweets are purchased, So it's unpacking all of those different things. And it's a journey, right? Because it's not going to be it's not a straight line journey.
Hey, that's my line.
It's not straight, because there'll be all these different directions that you have to go in. And so for me, the way that I am as an entrepreneur is not trying to rush to achieve the outcome, is playing along in the journey of unpacking all of the things preventing me from just receiving the success that I'm focused on achieving. So one can't be without the other, in my opinion.
And that success is already there. It's just you've got to, is it get out of your own way, or you've got to remove the blockages that you said that are preventing that from coming to you? Don't strive so much.
The natural state of all of humanity is already fully abundant and prosperous and loving and kind and nurturing and all of the yummy stuff. That is the natural state of being of every human. And anyone, lots of people listening will be going, oh, that's certainly not Jim down the road. He's a right swat. That kind of thing. Right? But that is the natural state of being. And all that happens is as you go through life, events happen that create emotional charge, that live in the physical body and manifest as behavior and thought patterns that are misconstrued, that prevent that from abundantly flowing from you. So when you unpack all of that stuff, all that happens is what you are already is just able to, the light that is in you is able to shine more clearly because there's less layers sitting on top of it. Every layer that you work through, more light comes out. And the more light comes out is your magnet. That light is you as a magnet. And so it just flows to you effortlessly and easily and freely. That's the reality of life, is it is effortless. But what's not so effortless is dealing with all of the layers that you've got. But the actual work itself is effortless.
So let me ask you a hypothetical question. Let's pretend that out of this 2-hour conversation, it's an hour and 37 so far, we'll probably still go for another 20 minutes, I'd say. Let's pretend that out of this 2-hour conversation, you decide that you want a conversation magnet created out of this conversation. You think that the kind of conversation we've had, you demonstrating how good you are, you do, a little bit of exploration around what makes Alastair, and there's other places that we could go with that. And you say, yeah, I want to see what a really high quality, I want to start using a really high quality conversation magnet from this conversation. If you could just get 3 people, 3 types of people, you could describe 3 people, 3 humans who you wanted to watch that conversation magnet and respond to it, how would you describe them? Who's your conversation magnet tuned to? Who do you want it to be tuned to?
Interesting. I think it's a very good question. So I think from a sales perspective, I only like working with entrepreneurs, the business owners and founders, because they're already motivated to succeed. They just don't know how to do it, right? And it might be that they don't know how to do it because of a skill set, a sales process, or they know a bits of that, but there's other stuff getting in the way. And from my experience, people are not trained in how to deal with that. So it might be that you need support, or somebody would need support in a sales process perspective, a skill set perspective, or it might be helping uncover what it is that's getting in the way of that being natural, easy, and free.
Which are both sides of you that we've talked about on this call.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think any business owner, founder, entrepreneur that's in the B2B realm, because that's really my specialty, is the B2B realm. That's where I really enjoy teaching people sales. Not that I don't know how to do B2C. That was my first original job, obviously, but that's where I really enjoy it. I think anyone who's in that area, I think that would be, from a professional perspective, that would be my ideal client, right? As somebody who's looking for that level of support in a sales or development perspective. There's also other people who might just want coaching. So I think one of the things that I've always seen myself as, even though it's not something that I pursue as a professional career in general, is the ability to coach somebody through what's happening for them with such clarity that it gives people a very clear direction of what they need to do themselves in order to change their pain or life circumstances. So I think that's not something that I would typically consider as my ideal client. But yes, people listening going, fuck, I don't know any of that, and I need support to do it. That would be a conversation I would welcome. And the third is is actually completely different. My third ideal client that listening to that would have a resonance, even though it's not the thing that I would sell them, funnily enough, is sales directors. So the other thing that I love doing, and I'm a total junkie for, is sales automation, right? I fucking love sales automation because I'm a lazy bastard. So anything that I can automate, I'm going to love it, right? I absolutely love it. So I'm a junkie for software. And even though the sales magnet, or the conversations magnet, sorry, has not been designed to talk about sales automation, any sales director listening to it will know that I fucking know sales. So if I were to send an email to them and go, I can help you with sales automation, and here's a conversation about my sales, my USP in sales automation is going, well, I'm not just a CRM developer or a sales automation guy. I'm a guy who knows sales that fucking loves automation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's about in the acting world. It's a bit like the difference between a singer who can act or an actor who can sing. You're gonna get two different types of performance.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's one of my favorite customers is sales directors, because there's this enormous resonance in sales, and they know already automation is the king to get a high conversion rate, right? They already know that. And so it's just demonstrating that I am putting sales automation in place with an enormous level of sales understanding that sits behind it. So my three ideal customers, even though one of them is new today, would be your entrepreneur, somebody who wants coaching on how the fuck do I figure this shit out, and sales directors, because I love working with sales directors.
In getting to where we've got to now in this conversation and where you are at in your life, and what's interesting to me is I said right at the very beginning, this is probably going to be a different, not a straight line podcast conversation than normal. I suspect it will become the norm. I think what we've explored here is the thing which is going to provide the most value to my guest. Interestingly, I had someone respond to an invite to a curiosity call the other day. I sent her my conversation magnet, which is I don't have at the moment. I don't have my equivalent of the kind of conversation magnet we've talked about in this call. The only conversation magnet I have is the testimonials that people who've been in conversation with me have said. So one of the things I'm hoping to get soon is my own conversation magnet, so that when you got to be your own first case study, haven't you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So anyway, this lady replied, and she's absolutely ticks all the boxes in terms of ideal client for Activate Your Podcast. And she replied with, "Thanks for sending that. Can you tell me a little bit about who the target audience is of the podcast and how many downloads you get per episode if you've got access to information?" No, that's the wrong question. That's the wrong question. Like, because this podcast exists for you and the value that you're going to get out of it in order to help you move closer to what you want. And I think the conversation that we've had on this episode just does such a beautiful job of
Demonstrating that.
Demonstrating why you want to have a 2-hour conversation with me, whether you wait and join the queue to come on the podcast, or whether you pay a little bit of money just to get on a call with me. Let me ask you a question. If you had paid £250 for this conversation, would you say it would have been worth it?
Oh, definitely.
Why? What makes you say that?
Interesting. It's something you said when we first started talking today is, as you articulate things, they become more clear to you. And one of the things that I've often done is start teaching something before I actually really know it, because I recognize in teaching them, I've become to know it even better, right? So the teaching bit. So when you have these types of conversations, the clarity that you get in yourself, and also something that happens when you're selling yourself is you sell yourself, right? So boost your self-esteem, your confidence, and the way that you're portraying who you are, and validating yourself that you are as good as you hoped you are. Right? And I think that's the key thing is, as you hope, you feel like you are. You're not quite sure that you are, but it's validating that. So I think it's an enormously valuable session to have with someone. Interesting. I wanted to point out on the question, how many downloads? If your presentation is totally on point, there should be not a single objection, not even one. And if there is, it means something's missing from your presentation. So as you have 100 presentations, every single objection should be added into your presentation as a preempting objection. So that downloads. So an example being that preempting that one moving forward, you'd say, now this is not about the success of my podcast. This is about you and your conversation magnet. So the next time you have a conversation, you add that line in, you won't get the question, right? And the next time you get an objection, you write it down, and add it to your presentation. So if you're using the landing page, add it to that.
Can I tell you the response that I went back with?
Go for it.
And you can tell me how you would have improved it. So I said,
So was this in messages?
yeah, it's in direct messages. Yeah.
Okay. It's different when it's in messages.
Yeah,
I was referring to.
I do most of my business development through LinkedIn DMs.
Yeah.
So, hey, Peter, thank you for sending this over. Could you tell me a bit more about who the target audience is and how many listeners you get per episode? Have you got some stats on that? I said, great question. The ideal listener is someone who identifies as an entrepreneurial artist. To be fair, most people book in to record an episode after getting to know me a little via the pillar episodes of my podcast, and I gave her a link to that. Then experiencing a short conversation with me on a curiosity call, and then having a high degree of confidence that a 2-hour conversation with me is worth that investment of time to them. The testimonial video I sent earlier gives you an idea of what those conversations are like. And I recently edited another video from all of the 35 plus conversations I've had in the last 5 months. And I gave her a link to that as well.
Did she respond?
Well, I only sent it just before I got on the call with you.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So from my experience with LinkedIn messages or emails also, mirroring is not just about body language or eye contact or tone of voice or mannerisms or language, which it is all of those things. In written communication, it's the same, right? So if someone says best regards, you put best regards. Someone says kind regards, you put kind regards.
I see.
Now, it also reflects to the amount of text given. So if someone responds with a single sentence, you respond with a single sentence. Now, if a single sentence isn't enough to answer the question, go back with a question.
Right. What would you have done in response to that? Now that you've experienced
Yeah,
the call?
yeah. So I would go back with curiosity and go, yeah, thanks so much for the question. Really good one. So as you said, yeah, really, really good question. Happy to answer. Just quickly, have you had experience with podcasts before?
Right.
Right. I want to get more out of you. So once I've got more out of you, I tend to just keep asking questions.
Got it.
So asking questions builds trust, and it also puts you in control.
Okay. Even in the DMs.
Even in the DMs.
That's a value bomb right there. It's worth this conversation just for that. Just keep asking questions.
Just keep asking questions.
Because I do it naturally in conversation. So why not do it in the DMs too?
It's funny, isn't it? Because the psychology, people tend to change their psychology in email. I've seen this a lot actually. But actually, it's the psychology in sales is identical in written format as it is in spoken format. It's identical. So whatever you would do in normal conversation is exactly what you should do in your messaging, and included in that would be mirroring. But there are slight nuances or differences to that, which is mirroring the amount of text. So I remember teaching my sales team that when I started this agency, I was like, whenever you get a response, make sure the character limit is exactly the same as theirs or as similar as it can be.
Yeah, no, I get that. We're coming up to the top of the hour, and we've already talked about this episode is different to most, although will probably form the norm going forward. So I'm going to end this conversation with the question which, for the last 40 conversations I've had, I've started with. And it's a question that I sent you by email a couple of days ago. And we may already have touched on it already, I don't know. But where you are now in your life with everything that's gone on, you look back on your life, what is that time that just jumps out to you in terms of being the biggest change of direction, or where the stakes felt the highest, or you felt a lot of pressure either internally or externally?
Biggest amount of pressure internally or externally? I think, authenticity knows no competition. I think for me, the thing that is continually taking a lot of effort, time to change is to continually become more and more and more authentic. And it is for me personally, I always like talking first person. For me personally, that is a long journey. And because authenticity, it has so many different faces. So authenticity is in the way that you speak. It's in the work that you love doing. It's the relationships that you hold. It's being authentic in the communication in those relationships. It's being authentic in what you're delivering as a service as a business owner. It's being authentic in answering difficult questions with difficult answers. So authenticity is not like oh, I just be myself. Now, authenticity has enormous amounts of growth that is required to be really, really, really authentic. I remember Oprah Winfrey seeing her in an interview, and she said, what was the difference? Because she wasn't successful for a long time. And they asked, what was the difference? And she said, until I made the realization that I just needed to be myself and not be the person that I thought people expected me to be. That was the difference in her success. And so for me, that journey is such a long thing. It's that learning of authenticity along the way. And actually, in truth, you go, oh, what if, the fears pop up, which are, well, what if I lose, or what if I get rejected, right? That's the fear of being authentic. Here's the real me. Well, people might not like that, right? And the reality is the people who do like it end up being the people that are then close to you. And the people who don't like the real version of you can fuck off, right? And that's the reality, isn't it? And so, yes, people will reject you, and yes, people will leave your life. But as a result of people leaving, you get better, closer connections.
Yes. And who doesn't want that?
Yeah. So that is the biggest challenge, journeying through that to get to somewhere where it feels total and complete in authenticity, which I don't think there's an end to that.
So that's amazing, and a really fitting way to start our approach to the runway of ending this quite simply brilliant conversation from my perspective anyway. I hope from yours also. Yeah. We're going to come back to the role play, and we're just going to finish it off so the listener and me are not left on a cliffhanger. So we've got to the end of the Not a Straight Line conversation, either for the podcast or the guest has paid £250 for the hour, and you've already said that you've got value. That if you had paid it, you'd have got value for that. What's the role play now with you taking my position? What's the role play of the conversation with the communication with my guest about that bump to the £300?
Very easy, and not trying to sell it in any way whatsoever, right? So at the end of the conversation, we finish the presentation going, it's 250 quid. This is all the value you're going to get from it.
No, I mean at this point here, so we've not done any of the presentation. We've just had our
so at the end of your first podcast, your first conversation,
at the end of this. So we've got to the end of the possible output for you from this conversation is your own 60-second conversation magnet.
Yeah.
What question do I ask you to see if you want the bump for us to?
I've got it. It's a piece of cake. So we've now come to the end of the podcast. So don't worry, everything I say from this moment onwards is all going to be edited out. So you don't need to worry about, this being part of it. So I just like to ask a bit of feedback. So how did you find the podcast? Now you're going to say, it's great. Okay. What was some of the value that you got from that? Okay. Now, if one of your clients or one of your potential clients was listening to this podcast, what do you think they're going to learn about you? Well, they're going to learn that you're really good at sales. They're going to learn that you have a deeper understanding. They're going to learn that you're a sales guru and a bit of a software junkie and all this kind of stuff. Right? Okay. And what kind of impact do you think that would have having a conversation with a prospective client if they've already watched that? Right. Okay. Now, imagine if we can just put the best of the past 2 hours that showcases you, teaches the world the best version of you in 60 seconds. Can you see how that might add value? Yeah. Okay. Well, you can go ahead and do that yourself, and you might find someone on Fiverr who can do it, But for 300 quid, we got the best of the best. Is that something you would want?
So let's pretend I said all that and ask you that question. What would you say?
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah. The reality is the 250 quid was a no-brainer piece of cake, right? It's like, you may as well, especially as long as someone's got some level of turnover, right? And at 300 quid, it's such a small amount of money, it's like, okay, well, let's just go for it, right?
Great.
And then I wouldn't finish there.
Well, great. Okay. So you'd say thanks. Great. Reverend, we'll get the wheels in motion for that.
The next step of that is basically, I'm gonna book a call with you and whoever the guy's called, right? He's probably going to have a couple of questions he's going to ask. There'll be some level of next steps.
No, the next step out of this to get your conversation magnet is nothing for you. I will take the 2 hours of this thing, send it to Rich.
Yeah.
And within a couple of days, you'll have your 60-second conversation magnet.
And you're going to watch it together. Okay. So there has to be some other meeting for accountability. Okay. The reason being is you're going to ask me to pay, right? Now, if I don't pay, there needs to be a call coming up where you've got to have paid and the work's got to be done. So if you haven't paid me by tomorrow, then when we have the call in a week's time when the work's meant to be completed, you're going to look like a numpty, right?
Yeah.
So there's got to be some level of accountability. So
I love it.
What we're going to do is we're going to jump on a call together, 15 minutes. We're going to watch it together.
Watch it together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's watch it together.
And if there's any aspect you don't like, then it just goes back into the edit pool. It's not like a one and done.
What does that then give you an opportunity to do if you watch it together?
Sell them on the podcast.
The next one. Cool. So now what I want you to do for the next couple of weeks or couple of months or whatever timeline makes sense is use this conversation magnet and get feedback. And I want the feedback from you, right? One, because I'm going to be asking you for a testimonial, right? A video testimonial, which we're going to do together like we are, right? Like we're talking right now. And the other reason is I want you to really recognize and realize the value that this is having. Okay. And then if you've enjoyed it and you've enjoyed the process, we can discuss whether or not you starting your own podcast is the right fit. Okay. And a great sales trainer is going, it's not the right fit for everyone. Right. And we're very choosy about who we work with because we're limited in capacity. Right. We're not a 100-person team. We work with quality. Dropping that in. We work with quality. So we want to make sure that this is the right fit. So it's something that we can then discuss. So what I'd like to do with you now, we're now on the video we've just watched together, right? What I'd like to do with you now is let's have a conversation in 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever makes sense. Yeah. In 2 weeks' time, I want to get your feedback around how this has impacted your business. And I want it to be authentic and I want it to be genuine. And I'd like to ask you for a little video testimonial. And then just let's see if you having your own podcast is the right fit. So now I'm setting an expectation that I'm also expecting to upsell you if you like it, right? So it's not going in cold. So the guy or girl or woman is joining the call, knowing you're going to be having that next discussion. So you're setting the, so an example being that the way that I sell my service is on the first sales call, I go, well, you can see that I'm a sales guy, right? So I'm going to help you get sales appointments. And guess what? In a few weeks' time, we'll be having another conversation. We're going to talk about sales process. And is that really getting the conversion rate you need? And guess what? Once that's nailed, we're going to be talking about sales automation. So they know on my first sales presentation that I am going to be upselling. So then it's something that there's an expectation. And normally, 9 times out of 10, on that call, on the first call, they'll go, send me more details about that. Or, yeah, I'm going to be interested in that. And then I make a note going, right, that's the one they're interested in.
Plug it into your sales automation.
I plug it into my sales automation. Literally, that is what
Amazing. So I ask all my guests a couple of questions at the end of the conversation. Who would you like to give the gift of a £250 that's worth £250 conversation with me? Who do you think would value the experience that you've just had, and who's I guess some aspect of their non-straight line journey would be interesting to you? But who do you want to give a £250 Christmas gift to?
Well, I think the value would be for anyone. I'll just say that first. Yeah. So the value is basically anyone that I've met. I think Nick from the Ideas Agency would be such a fucking good fit. And he's a legend, right? So
right. Great.
I would love to make the intro for the two of you to have a discussion and he'd be well up for it.
Okay. And I'd like to talk with you offline about what that communication looks like, because you are effectively, now that it's not set in stone, obviously it's going to flex and change, but we've now got a process of sorts.
Yeah.
That you, of all the people that you could have chosen in your whole life, you chose to give Nick this £250 gift. So he gets to jump the queue.
Ah, great. I think that's a fucking great idea. Okay. I think that's a great idea. And what I would do is in this little bit is what I'd ask you to do afterwards is send him an email, CC me in, make a direct introduction, and then I'll take it from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Because otherwise people can be very flaky.
Okay. And do I need to give you any, my guest on the podcast, any direction about what to say in that? Or
you could, yeah. So you could say, I'm going to ping you an email afterwards. I'd like you to forward that email to Nick, but also CC me in. Are you happy to do that?
Yeah. Okay. And what should be in that my email to you about that?
I would just have it as an info of what it means to be joining the podcast. And then what I would want in the forwarding is at the top, I would write to Nick going, by the way, definitely have a conversation with Peter. He's a fucking legend. And then I would even tell you to do that. I'd be like, when you forward it, put a little sentence at the top telling him how much you enjoyed it. and put me in touch directly.
Oh, and what about the £250 gift aspect of it?
I like that. I think that's great.
And how would you want me to tell you to include that in your email to Nick?
I don't know if it actually needs to be included. I like it because I think it's a very clever way of getting a lot more of these without having to do any business development whatsoever.
Yeah. So maybe I can give you a discount code. I said that send to Nick is that when you go to book your call, there is a £250 charge, but because I'm introducing you're the person I selected. You can use this discount code and you can
Yeah, I
jump the
think
queue.
that can work. Yeah, I think that can work. Yeah, but I like it. I think that's a really good way of growing that network.
Amazing. So I've got that. The other question that I ask every guest is, how can the listener and I help you the most right now?
How can the listener and I help you? I think send this to anyone that you think it would resonate. What you're watching right now, send it to whoever you think. If it resonates with you, let's have a chat. If you think it resonates with someone that you know, send them the link.
Share it with them.
And maybe even send them where in this conversation on the timeline you think that the bit that's relevant to them is. Because friends will do that to me. They'll send me a video and it'll be like 2 hours on. I'm like, just no fucking chance we'll be watching 2 hours of this.
No.
And be like, no, go to 1 minute 32 and there's a little section there that's going to be perfect for you.
What a great tip. Fucking hell. You broke the bank with value and advice and expertise and humanness and authenticity on this call, Alastair. And on behalf of the listener and myself, I can't thank you enough for opening your heart and teaching us and healing us to some capacity as well with where we're at. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to know you.
Peter, it's been such a joy. It's been such a joy. And I think you're absolutely fantastic at doing what you do. And it's been really, really, really splendid. There's my Winchester coming out there. Really splendid.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Not a Straight Line. If this conversation helped to reorient your internal compass or inspired you in any way, please let us know by heading to podcast.notastraightline.life/rate and leave a rating and review. Thanks as always to Matthew Bliss of MB Podcast Services for his exquisite engineering of this episode. If you'd like him to help you with your podcast, contact details are in the show notes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or there's someone whose non-straight line journey you'd just love to hear, then please visit podcast.notastraightline.life/guest. Thanks for being here with me, and I'll see you next week for another amazing, deep, inspiring non-straight line journey. Love you.